Welcome back to Radio Free Urbanism, everybody, the podcast about urbanism and stuff.
Oh, and stuff.
I'm one of your hosts today, Ethan, also known as Climate in Transit, and today I am joined by our wonderful co-hosts, Nick Laporte.
Hello and welcome back, everybody. I have a bit of a cough, so I'm going to try to talk as little as possible, or at least cough as little as possible.
Understood. We will be hearing not a whole lot of Nick today, but we will be hearing very insightful things as usual. And our other host, Sully.
Hello.
We have a really great show for all of you today, just like every other episode that we put out for all of you wonderful people. And I'd like to thank everybody who's joined us in the live chat here and is dealing with our wonderful 10-second wait time that we gave them. Today, we're going to be opening up with some of our updates. Nick, it looks like you have an update.
Yeah, the federal election is on Monday, the 28th here in Canada, so go out and vote. Also, something happened in Seattle. I was in Seattle not too long ago, and they've actually closed down Pike Place Market, the street, to cars. Finally, it's been requested for ages. So Best Side Cycling, Hannock, actually put out a short little video of it. I'm just going to show here on the screen. If you're watching on the YouTube, you can check it out, which is great. So this is like a non-specific closure, or rather a specific closure. If you need access, they want to make it a functioning street. But if you're in a car just driving to drive there, or you're in an Uber, you're going to be rejected. Like, you can't come onto this street. This is only going to be for businesses that need to have access there, or for other specific purposes. I think even people who have accessibility issues like that, who are in cars, can also go in there to be dropped off. And it is open to bikes. So that's really cool. It's just a pilot. They're going to see how it goes. And I don't know, how could this go poorly? I don't think it's going to be bad. I think this is going to be a success, especially if they make use of all that space they have on the street.
Yeah, it seems like a really exciting plan. And I mean, if they go forward full time, I mean, it would be really, really exciting if they added in some sort of retractable bollard system for deliveries and other things like that to make it a little bit more difficult for, private vehicles to use it as a throughway rather than actually, delivery vehicles that have to deliver off supplies there.
Totally. Yeah. Retractable bollards are so underused in North America.
They really are. Opinion. I mean, Seattle does have them, which is good. I mean, like they have them around the Space Needle, which I've seen. And yep. I mean, the only other city I've really seen them like in like a fair amount of number is like DC, but that's for like federal buildings and stuff like that. But yeah, this seems like a really exciting project, or at least a trial run for Pike Place. It's a really wonderful public space, and just having less cars in it would be a massive improvement over what it is.
Totally. You could say that about almost any place. But yeah. What do you think, Sully?
Oh, I think it's great. I was wondering when you said the people who used to drive here, I was thinking, who were those people and why would anyone choose to drive? Because even when it was open to cars, what a stressful place to drive. Like, why would
people walking all over the place?
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of people.
Bollards are concerned.
Yeah.
They have them at UCLA a lot so that the maintenance vehicles can go around on the big pathways. And I actually had an inside joke with some friends of mine in Strongtown, Santa Barbara, because for State Street in downtown, which we want to close the cars permanently, a lot of people are saying, well, how do you even do that? How do you regulate delivery vehicles coming in and not private people? It has to be all or nothing. And so at a public meeting, we brought up retractable bollards. And there was this moment where this very local, very well-respected local architect, she said, retractable bollards, that's impossible. And so it's kind of this catchphrase that we have now. And I took a trip with one of my friends from Santa Barbara to Europe. And every time we saw a retractable bollard, he'd go, hey, look, a retractable bollard. And I would say, no, that's impossible. Like, she was like, they cannot exist. And I was like, okay.
Absolutely impossible.
So I'm making it an inside joke here is what I'm trying to say.
I love that. That's great. I'll try to remember that.
Yeah,
okay. That's right.
Because that is impossible. How can we make a retractable bollard?
Simply impossible.
Simply impossible.
Ethan, you got an update.
Anyways, yes, I do have an update. We just got some new announcement from LA Metro on a new, a ongoing project that's been going on for quite a few years now. LA Metro's light rail K and C lines are now going to be running to LAX. Well, at least the LAX intermodal station. So there's going to be quite a important extension of the light rail system in Los Angeles, and that'll be opening up on June 6th. This will provide a lot better connections for people to the airport, Now, there is one final portion of this project that still needs to be opened up, and that would be the people mover from this little airport terminal, or from this airport intermodal station to the actual terminals. Because at the moment, that is kind of like the last little connection that needs to be done. Sully, I'm sure you've been to LAX quite a few times. Can you give us kind of a rundown of how it is to get in and out of the airport?
I would love to, because actually both Ethan and I saw this story independently and put it in the show notes. So what I was going to say about it, well, first of all, I actually made a YouTube video a couple months ago called LA's newest metro has a hole in it. You might have seen it. And this is the hole. So it's going to be filled in. So I think I'm going to make a second video, and Ethan and I, maybe we can meet up in person because you're going to be down there.
Maybe.
So that would be cool if we make appearances in each other's videos. But this station is a mile from the actual terminal entrances. And the connection between this station and the terminals is going to be an automatic people mover system, which is completely separate from LA Metro. In fact, it's designed by different people. It's designed by LAWA.
LAWA.
Los Angeles World Airports. They did that project themselves and sort of coordinated with Metro. If you look at early planning documents as far back as the 80s, there were ideas to have the Sea Line itself run into the terminals like you have in many cities. One city like that I've been to is London, where you have the Piccadilly line that runs right into the terminals. But for various reasons, that didn't happen because of routing options, and the airport originally didn't want the Metro connection. And so the way LAX is structured is the famous horseshoe. If you're from the LA region, you know of the dreaded horseshoe. It is a very long U-shaped road where if you want to get to Terminal 8, you have to drive past 1, 2, 3, 4. You have to drive around the whole horseshoe, which is crazy because there are people loading and unloading bags. There's a rental car, shuttle. Every single rental car service has a shuttle bus, which as a kid, I was amused by the strange I think it was Hertz had like a cheetah print shuttle bus, but they clog up the whole thing, and they tried to address it in the traditional way, which is just adding more lanes, double stacking the road, and separating the directions, separating a lane for the shuttle buses, and it's still miserable, especially since the rise of Uber and Lyft. It's only gotten worse.
They even did a separate little area for Uber and Lyft, and it's still miserable.
Yeah, and which I think there's a charge, by the way, for Uber and Lyft. I'm pretty
there's
sure.
A little surcharge for what they call it LA Exit. They turned one of the old parking garages into a rideshare pickup area.
Okay. Yeah, they did that when it was in Vegas. I saw that. They did that.
Yeah, it's a little bit even more inconvenient in LA than it is in Vegas, which is honestly kind of baffling.
So the hope is that at least when the people mover opens to this LAX station, people will want to avoid the horseshoe, and they'll go to actually what looks like a miniature version of the horseshoe, which they built a separate drop-off zone. And by the way, I know we're celebrating the transit aspect of this, but did you guys know that part of this construction included America's largest parking structure?
Yes, that's right. For the rental car facility.
It is a beast. This thing is... How many spots does it have, Ethan? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. I do know it is bigger than the Seattle one, which I think is like 15,000 or something like that.
So it's gigantic. And what's kind of cool, actually, is that the people mover dead ends into the parking structure. It looks like it's getting swallowed by it because it goes in on the third level or something.
It's kind of crazy.
Which also kind of means it can't expand past there. But my question for you guys, something that I was thinking about is, doing a casual survey of my friends who live in LA who are not planners, and yes, I have friends that aren't in urban planning, they don't even know about the construction of this thing. And because the people mover doesn't connect to it yet, it's not super obvious to even go there. But even once it does, I feel like what aspect of the question I'm trying to get at is what aspect of transit ridership you think is related to sort of the transit being well known? Because I think this thing is going to open and nerds like us are going to be excited, but none of the three people I'm friends with even know that it's opening. So do you think traffic really will shift? Is it about having signage around LAX telling people? What do you think it's going to take to get it?
I think it's word of mouth, right? And it's also convenience. If it's convenient, people will use it. As simple as that.
I think so too. I also think that LA Metro does have to do some more outreach. I know they do a really good job with it, but they still need to, amplify that. People are just starting to find out about the existence of LA Metro in LA, people who have been living there for years, which is honestly kind of baffling.
That's wild.
But it's definitely, from everything I've seen, it's been a long fight in Los Angeles to get, any transit recognition there. And they're finally getting a little bit more of a comprehensive system within Los Angeles of light rail, heavy rail, metro, the bus system as well too. Everything just kind of building together to build a more cohesive network. I mean, it's one of the I think it is actually the largest bus network in the United States, but it's still fairly. If you were to ask people about transit, I mean, people aren't going to list off Los Angeles as one of them, one of the major cities in the US with it. So, I mean, it's really just kind of getting, that convenience factor and just expanding the system to more neighborhoods too as well. This LA connection is going to help. The eventual D line extension is going to help out too. When the Sepulveda extension gets built too, or the Sepulveda line gets built, that'll help. It's just these little pieces that have to keep coming together and keep coming together before you really have that comprehensive, understandable system that people are going to use over other options. And yeah, Nick, you said convenience, and that's huge for people too.
The
Yeah.
Sepulveda line, which will not be a monorail.
That's right.
Yeah, no, I think
That's
it's interesting
right.
too. I think part of the unknown part of it, a friend of mine was saying, was like in New York, it's so in the culture. The subway is in the culture. So the subway map is like a cultural symbol. If you think about London, the underground symbol is a cultural symbol. And also, he was saying in New York, like famous people ride the subway. You know, it seems like a thing that
Yeah.
people do. Whereas here, the thing too, if you're not from LA, if you don't know this, like a lot of people's lives exist between neighborhoods where there is no rail. Like I know people who live in Beverly Hills, work in Hollywood, work in Santa Monica. There just isn't a east-west connection at all with rail. So to them, it's irrelevant whether it exists all the way out in the San Gabriel Valley that the A line is extending. It has not. They've been there probably fewer times than people from who visit LA have ever been to that
They've
area.
probably been to
So,
New York more than they've been to the San Gabriel Valley.
oh yeah, LA is like that. I mean, and then you have sort of a class of super commuters who all support the wealthier people in Beverly Hills and Santa Monica and Hollywood, but they're more familiar with the whole region. But yeah, the bus ridership is relatively abysmal, but in terms of mode share. But what I think is interesting is, where the D line, I think the D line is going to be a super key like to this because it's going to go through the wealthy areas of LA and actually connect them in a way that's more convenient than driving because the D line is fully grade separated in a tunnel.
Yeah.
But what's interesting to me is wherever you have the stations getting built, there are these huge, 20 or 30 foot tall fences with big signs, LA Metro coming soon. And I met someone who lives 2 blocks from a future station in Beverly Hills. And I said, "Are you excited about the station?" He says, "What station?" I said, "Well, all that construction." And he goes, "That's what that is?" I was like, "How do you not know? This is 2
All
blocks from
right.
your house." So I don't know. Are
May,
people like him going to stroll onto the subway when it opens? I hope so.
maybe if you're not focusing on a 30-foot sign, I don't know if there's much we can do to help you on that one. But yeah, it's really
Yeah.
making it convenient having that word of mouth, and yeah, running the subway down Wilshire Boulevard is going to be crucial just for ridership. I mean, that whole stretch is just some of the most dense development in the U.S.
Yeah. And of course, the neighborhood I'm in is along Wilshire Boulevard. I'm 3 blocks north of Wilshire. Try and find me, you creepy doxer people. But I'm 3 blocks north of Wilshire. And of course, the neighborhood I'm in chose not to have a station in it, which will actually speed up the end to end travel time, but means that I will still be sort of equidistantly like a mile, not a mile, probably like 3/4 of a mile from each station. So I'll still be biking to it.
I've been to LAX once. It was a decade ago. I went from Calgary to LAX, and it was just for a layover on my way to Japan. And my only thought about LAX was like, hey, Grand Theft Auto. That's the only thing I thought of.
You didn't think of speed?
No, I didn't.
Well, there you go.
Sorry. It's been
Yeah.
too long. GTA that's 2015 we're talking. This is like fresh PC GTA 5. It was all the rage then.
He's not thinking of Midnight Club LA anymore.
No,
He's just thinking of
that's
GTA
gone.
5.
Yeah. What do we got next though?
But yeah, we've got some stories that we're going into. This first story comes to us from Sully. Sully, what do you got for us?
Well, I saw a Business Insider story, and not unlike the New York Times story about sprawl being fantastic, this Business Insider story was about the Trump administration's goals in addressing the housing crisis. And I think we like to call ourselves objective journalists, right, guys?
Oh, sure.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
So I think it's worth giving them a fair shake. They went out of their way and created a website, which I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see. Are we going to get one of these screen inceptions so that you can see everything. Oh no, here, I'll just do the window. Here.
I just hear clicking.
I just hear clicking
Here,
too.
I'll use the mouse. I'm sorry. So here it is. First thing I'll note is that it's a Trump administration. Well, it was created by a group that works with the Trump administration. So surprising that the website works at all, because I thought that they fired everybody.
It just looks like the most bare bones GIS project when you scroll through it.
So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what it is. And I'm still trying to figure out exactly what everything is here. It looks like they did. So okay, first of all, I should share the basic premise. The basic premise is nobody likes infill. It's expensive and woke. So let's look at all the land the government owns for freedom cities, which are places where we can develop brand new cities where there aren't NIMBYs and people won't be upset about it, and everyone will get their own single family house. And they actually did a little bit of work here. They filtered out by slope. So this is all the federal land that's highlighted. And they've actually shown where it would be too difficult to develop because the slopes are too high, which is something that real projects do. I've worked on a development that did this with their property.
Now let's be real here. This is like the most basic thing that you can do in GIS or any geospatial software. This is like one of the most basic things.
So yeah, it's
let's not give them too much credit.
Say, yeah, it's not hard to filter by slope. Like all of that data is free. So yeah, filter by developable. So this is kind of interesting. So let's see, conservation land. Okay, so they care about if it's conservation. There are so many options here. So obviously you don't want to build your house on a reservoir. That's pretty obvious. Or in a stream. Well, they might actually not care about that. So anyway, what I was more interested in was the population projections that they have for these freedom cities. So if you click on a random one like this one, it says the housing potential is 161,252 units. Now, I don't understand the density that they're assuming there, but based on how big that this piece of land is, it's not a high density. Like, this is a pretty gigantic piece of property.
I also want to say,
yes, go ahead.
This is land that gets to 100 degrees by April.
Yes. Yeah.
This is unbearably hot land that we are looking at by Lake Havasu.
Oh, yes, but it does have the original London Bridge, so
this is true.
That's cool. Anyway, so you can see here, they tell you how many jobs are within 10 miles. I'm not sure how they must have calculated that. Maybe using the census, I would assume. And then they have median home values, which I think is kind of their proof that, hey, these houses are going to be affordable. They're only going to be about $400,000. But what you may notice, and the first thing I noticed, is that the places that are experiencing the housing crisis the most are also the places where there are no freedom cities, because guess what? All of the land is already built on.
And considering that most government land is west of the Rockies, take a look at the East Coast.
Oh, yes. Let's see where the freedom cities on the East Coast are going to be. Are there any?
No, there's not.
They've just given up, I guess.
The furthest east freedom city would be somewhere near Gillette, Wyoming.
Yeah, or this one. Here in Odessa, near Odessa. So yeah, I was actually looking at the freedom city closest to LA, because I was like, okay, there are people who commute from Victorville, Lancaster, Palmdale to LA. I actually went and got my hair cut by a guy who commutes from Lancaster every day.
Is that like super commuting territory?
That is super commuting, for sure.
That's close. That's almost closer to Vegas at that point.
Holy. Yeah. Oh.
So what I'm noticing here is that jobs within 10 miles, 9,000. That sucks. Housing potential, 82,000. But what you'll notice is that the home prices, even this far from LA, are still close to $600,000.
Oh my God.
So it's honestly, it would be more expensive to build and buy a home here than it would be to buy an apartment, even in high demand areas of LA. Okay. I mean, it would be close, because I know there are apartments in high demand areas that are closer to $1 million. So
yeah, it's this whole thing about everybody wanting a single family home, and I get it. I always say this. I get it. I do too. I would love a big house. I got a basement where I have like a man cave. I have all my guitars and my basses and have like a music room and like a theater room. Sounds amazing. It's just, it's not possible. We don't have the space. Like you look at here in the lower mainland in BC, There's like this one spot that we can build stuff.
Right.
And like the borders of Vancouver are already filled up. Borders of Richmond are filled up. Borders of Burnaby are filled up. They're starting to expand into, Langley and the southeast, but like it's going to be full. There's nowhere else we can build. It's just so stupid, and they don't think forward, like actually think about where we're going with this. Why can't we just have, like, if we're going to do a greenfield development, can we at least build like a Houghton where it's like actually a dense little city?
Yes.
Why can't we do that in North America? I want to see that.
And why can't we at least have one of them? Like, I get what I don't understand. Well, I think cul-de-sac in Tempe, Arizona is the closest thing we've seen to that, where it's like, look, I get that most people want to live in, quote unquote, most people want to live in a single family home. And I get that most developers want to build that. But like, can't we just have one Houghton? You know what I mean?
Just try,
in all of Metroplex, Houston and Dallas, we can't build one of them. I don't know. It's kind of...
You could find 50,000 people who would love to live in a place like that.
Yeah. You could find literally any area right off of like a park and ride for like a light rail line in a mid-sized city. Take that land and turn it into like a Houghton style development.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's almost enough space in downtown LA of just empty parking lots that you could do that. So I actually found their methodology. So look at them quoting sources. Wow, this is pretty cool. So
fantastic.
So I don't understand the difference between Homesteading 2.0, which is such a, by the way, cool name. I gotta say, cool name. Homesteading 2.0. So they think they could build 1.5 million homes over 40 to 50 years on just 0.3% of BLM land. That's crazy.
What is BLM land? Because that just...
BLM stands for Bureau of Land Management. Okay. So it's basically the government's land managing operation that isn't like the Forestry Division or National Parks or
Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter land, which I thought I was like, is that what that means?
Not Black Lives Matter land. So
I do also want to bring up one thing is that this GIS data or whatever their geospatial data they're using for this does have some of these freedom cities placed in dry lakes. And those are generally not a great place to live.
Why?
Well, if we're talking about basically just calcified salt, just crystallized salt, building on that, and then living on it.
Yeah.
That sounds like dystopian. Oh my God.
And then moving water through that in plumbing.
Oh boy.
That's like Mad Max.
Yeah.
But hey, at least you don't have to buy salt. You can just go outside and scoop it off the ground. That's actually kind of cool. That would be like
some of these are on alkali flats too, which is even worse because those are they're acidic essentially. They're considerably worse. Like if it gets wet, it will start to like actually like irritate your skin.
Oh my God.
Granted, it's still a salt flat, but
Yeah.
That's horrifying.
Jack says in the chat, meanwhile, Philly and Baltimore have housing stock in the 200,000s and many more jobs. You know what? Actually, seeing the walkable street subreddit, Philly features a lot on there. It makes me want to go there. Definitely.
Philly does have some very walkable streets.
Oh, yeah. It seems, I recently for the first time watched that show, The Wire, which is like 20 years old.
Shit.
Yeah, so I went and like onto Street View in Baltimore because I was just curious. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm sure it's gotten better. But like wherever I was putting the little guy down in Google Street View, there were just tons of boarded up. But it was like that urbanist paradise type building where it's all back to back row houses with corner stores, all closed, all boarded up, all burned out. And I was like, coming from California, I've only ever lived in Southern California my whole life. I've never been to the East Coast, and I've never really seen an abandoned place because where I live, every square inch of land is very, very valuable. And so it was wild to me. I was like, holy cow, that there's just all this empty housing and it's not even, and it's like the bones of it are pretty good, like walkable. So I don't know. If you would think also like if the Freedom Cities thesis held true, which is we just need housing, it doesn't matter where it is. Well, then all those homes in Baltimore would be full. So obviously the thesis falls apart right there. But I
think it matters a lot where they are, right? It matters.
Right. Same with the Midwest too. You'll deal with a lot of situations like that where you have just these major like suburbs of just single family homes that are just all empty. Same with Florida too. A lot of failed land developments there with just empty homes.
Detroit is wild. Detroit is from the sky. Holy. Like, you can understand why the downtowns get destroyed and turned into parking lots, but you look at all the suburbs for like miles outside and just like empty lots and
Yeah, that's a
abandoned
fun
houses.
fact I learned recently, which is that what is it? One of the fastest shrinking cities, Gary, Indiana. Even
Yeah,
the entire time that Gary has lost population, and it has like a third of what it had or something, the surrounding counties have steadily gained population the whole time and have built more and more housing. So it's not like people disappeared from the region. It's just that they wanted newer houses in the suburbs,
Yeah,
which is so
totally.
weird to me. Because now all of their suburbs surround nothing because the town does hardly exist anymore.
It's a common thing. It seems they keep doing it over and over and thinking it's going to work. But I mean, that's very deep and has a lot of connecting issues on how we got there, right? A lot of racism and redlining in the past. And then that stuff just,
that
keeps
also
going
has
down
to
the
go with
road.
a lot of steel jobs abandoning Gary itself
Yeah.
too. It is quite a boom town, just purely off of steel.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. But yeah, I think someone said this to me about Los Angeles, and so I didn't make it up, but Los Angeles sort of epitomizes, the LA region epitomizes people wanting to live in the suburbs and in the city at the same time. And it turns out when you try to do both, does not work very well. Because the neighborhood I'm in, on the street that I'm on, it's quiet, it's leafy, everyone gets their own house, but every 3 blocks is a gigantic 6-lane road that you don't want your kids to walk across.
Yeah. You're
Yeah,
boxed in.
Yeah.
And we've been doing this for 50 years, and I think it's time to call that experiment to a close and say it's just not working out for us.
I
Yeah.
think we can agree on that for sure.
The
Well,
suburban experiment has been quite the disaster.
Yeah.
look at us reaching consensus. That's so nice.
Wow.
Look at
What a
that.
miracle.
Would have thought.
Wow. Well, what's the next story, Ethan? Unless you want to talk
Yes,
more
our
about
next
freedom.
story comes to us from Nick, and he's talking about an HLA lawsuit.
Hello. Yeah, we're in This is like LA episode.
This is the SoCal episode.
Yeah, so this is-
specifically LA. San Diego can get out of here.
Yeah, this is something that happened a while ago, but I'm going to get you through the saga if you never heard of this. So the first Measure HLA lawsuit has been filed, and that's by Joe Linton, editor of Streets Blog LA, and he's kind of been a huge pusher of HLA for a while, even before it got passed. So I'll get you through the whole thing. So HLA is Healthy Streets LA, and when it requires that during street repaving, the city implements bus, bike, and walk improvements approved in the city's Mobility Plan 2035, which is from 2015, the Los Angeles City Council overwhelmingly approved as an update to the city's transportation plan. The Mobility Plan lays out a foundation for upgrades to more than 2,500 miles of the city streets to better support movement of drivers, pedestrians, transit riders, and cyclists. So basically, that was approved in 2015, after which the city failed to meet what they set out to do, like vehemently, just like terrible. So HLA came in over a year ago, and that was approved, and it basically says, no, you have to follow that. It's just being like, you have to. It's the law. So the city still seems to be unable to meet their own rules. So, for example, Vermont Ave was repaved about a year ago, and they failed to install the required pedestrian and bike improvements. And since HLA passed a year ago, at least 36 people have been severely injured, 4 people killed on Vermont Ave. The youngest victim was a 12-year-old severely injured in a hit and run in South LA. The oldest victim was 91 years old, a pedestrian killed crossing the street in East Hollywood. So over the last 5 years, more people have been killed traveling on Vermont than any other street in LA. So it's just unacceptable in the first place that back in 2015, when they passed the mobility plan, that they were just like not doing a good job. But then to come in last year and be like, here's the new rules, here's the law, we are going to do this, and then still not do it is just messed up. So not to go too deep in the weeds here, but it sounds like Metro, that's the company who's actually contracted with repaving the streets, is saying, we're not the city, like actually, so we don't have to follow HLA. And the lawsuit's like, no, you do have to follow the rules. You're contracted by the city. So this lawsuit is, is essentially saying that the city redo portions of Vermont Ave that they repaved last year, but failed to install the required pedestrian and bike improvements, and declare that the Vermont BRT and future metro projects subject to HLA when they're doing work in the city of Los Angeles. So it's just like another thing, be like, no. Actually, you actually have to do it, which is just like, Oh, it's so frustrating. I could only imagine being somebody who's living in Los Angeles, working and fighting for this stuff and seeing this happen over and over and over. It's just brutal.
You mean like
Brutal.
me?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have to be very, very careful what I say here because I work with LA Metro and I work with engineers who I'm working with people who are designing the Vermont Transit Corridor project. So I have to be very careful what I say. But what I can say about the lawsuit is that it's a technicality that they're saying, because it is true that the law was passed that the city of LA had to implement their own mobility plan, and HLA enforced that, whereas LA Metro is a transit agency. And I don't know if this happens in other cities, maybe Ethan knows, but LA Metro ends up, when they do a project, they end up repaving the roads around. So like the subway stations that they're building, the Little Tokyo one and the Bunker Hill Arts Station, they, for instance, were in charge of all the curbing, all the roadways around that station. And that's why they're saying, well, you passed this thing about the city. What does it have to do with us? The other thing I can say, while still being careful, is that LA streets seem to be governed by just a wide array of groups within the city. It's very confusing. I think more so than in other cities. The gutters, the trees, the traffic lights, the striping are all done by different departments within LA City Hall. And an audit was done. Actually, the consulting firm I work for, I think carried out an audit where they had some suggestions about how communication could be made better. And I don't know if those were ever implemented, but it's often just about the community. I think a lot of things, I don't even think it's intentional a lot of the time. I think a lot of things are lost in communication, where it's like, if you're not having meetings with all the right people, oops, we repaved the street and we didn't realize a bike lane was supposed to go there because the gutter people and the tree people and the light people didn't talk to each other. So, and then look, I don't want to say it's intentional because I can't say that, but Joe probably thinks it is. That's all I'll say.
But it's so it's
Yeah.
compartmentalized, and that's, creates barriers so that they can't actually get it done well.
Yeah,
That
it's a
makes sense.
huge-
Yeah.
Totally.
It's a huge
Every city
thing,
does it a
huge
little
difference.
differently too. Just depending on, some cities have a little bit more red tape than other ones. California cities, of course, Los Angeles, known for having a bit more red tape than other cities in other states. But usually in other cities, the DOT would take care of, or whatever, city DOT, state DOT would take care of the road work project, and the transit agency would mainly deal with the transit on the actual property. If it has to do any infrastructure, it would, on the property, it would be done by them. But as soon as it gets off their property, they don't have to do any of the streets.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
there you go.
I think here in Vancouver, TransLink is responsible for doing a lot of that as well. They're the transit agency here, but they do a lot of the road work around their stops and stuff like that as well, right? But I'm curious to see how this turns out. I hope it gets approved, and I hope that at least they follow the spirit of the law, which I think is what it's meant to be in the first place, which is like, if there's road work being done in Los Angeles, like, we'll put these improvements in, because it's unacceptable how bad it is. LA being one of the worst places. I think LA for children, cars are the number one killer for kids in LA, which in other places it's another thing, which is also really bad. But like, it's not good. It's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Vision
it's
Zero plan adopted, and yet since the adoption, deaths have only gone up. So
Right.
doesn't sound like a Vision Zero plan to me.
no. Although I will say they did do a nice job. There's a street I bike on right before I get to the metro every single day, which was a lot that they had purchased, which was just a giant hole where the tunnel boring machine had been lowered down to dig the D-line tunnel. And since I've been working at this job and biking by it every day, I've gotten to see them lift out the machine, cover up the hole, and then redo all the sidewalks and curbing all around it. And, they did a good job. So it's not that they're... And now I actually have no idea what that lot's going to become, because it's not a station entrance. It's just dirt now. So who knows? But going to a reader question, maybe they could make some money selling it. It's on Wilshire. So I don't know what they have in store for it.
I mean, if it's right on Wilshire, it'd be pretty valuable.
Yeah, exactly. Although I will say the building next to it is abandoned, so I think it's about to be torn down. That's why. But so yeah, I hope they get their act together and do what they're supposed to do, because they're good at making sidewalks, just not so much with the bike lanes.
Not yet.
Like,
what a great place to bike. I feel like it's just, you get sun. How many days a year do you get sun there?
Oh,
you get sick of it?
300 at least.
Do you ever get tired of the sun? I mean, I don't like the sun that much, but
if it's foggy,
I feel like I'd enjoy it.
I get very upset.
Man,
Because
Yeah,
it's
I
not
mean,
intense desert sun. It's like a nice 70-degree, so it's nice with an
man,
ocean
that's
breeze.
amazing. That
yeah,
sounds
and it's
amazing.
biking around places like Santa Monica is awesome, and then as soon as you get outside of the little pockets in the LA metro region, it's a nice little painted gutter on the side of a 6-lane highway.
Yeah,
If
not
that,
great.
if that.
They're getting there, man. They're getting there. I think Long Beach is like in the top 10, at least, on walk score. We don't need to take it too seriously. Take it with a grain of salt, but it's up there.
I do like how you said Long Beach, though.
Specifically. Yeah, it is specifically Long Beach.
No, I like
Specifically,
how you said Long. You accented the
Please,
long part of Long Beach.
Long Beach, like that?
Yeah, yeah. I
How do
like
you
that.
say it?
Sounds good.
How do you say it?
Long Beach.
I don't know. I don't hear the difference.
Whatever. It's fine.
I got Canadian brain. All right, we got some listener mail here. What do we got first? Sully, do you want to read this first one here from D-Man?
I will. I have to open up the listener mail chat here. Okay. Okay. He said, I know the point of public transit isn't to be profitable, but do you think it's worth it / possible to make a good transit system that's profitable so that American anti-transit politicians can finally shut up? P.S. I know that technically public transit is already profitable when you factor in the full economics and intangibles on the city government scale.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's a great question.
That's a great question.
it is. It is. Personally, I think it is possible. I think you just have to, bring cars down to the limit of transit. So that way you're encouraging people to actually ride transit. If you're going to hold transit to the standard of profitability, you got to hold cars to that exact same standard. And then you'll notice that transit will indeed be more profitable than driving.
Yeah, I think a big part of it too, as we talked about in recent episodes, is TODs, and TODs that are owned by the transit system is a big way to make them profitable. And that's the way they've been profitable traditionally. I've talked about it before again. In Japan, that's how they do it. These a lot of private metros, they own the land around the stops, and that's how they make most of their money. And that's how they did it in the past when it came to streetcar suburbs. It wasn't the streetcar that made the money, it was the fact that they built these suburbs and sold the houses. That's the same thing. So I
This is
think,
how so many businesses work too. If you think about it, like
yeah.
I think very few transit agencies in their history have been profitable from the tickets. It's always been the add-ons, whether it's the TOD or literally just selling food in the dining car. But like, think about it: movie theaters at ballparks, it's the same. Do you think? I mean, you pay your ticket, but then once you're there, Disneyland, all the crap that they try and hawk you, and you end up spending far more money on all that stuff than you ever did on the ticket.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's like a common thing. And we know, and of course, you have to bring up Brightline with this question too, right? Like, there is a private transit agency that is making their money, doing quite well, as far as I know, in Florida. And so, yeah, LA Metro. One thing to go back to them. One thing I've been disappointed with LA Metro is that what they've chosen to do with most of their stations is they clear the land and make a station plaza, and then the station entrance. I mean, to get down to the subways, and the station entrance is just, I mean, it's very ornate. They hire artists, which I think is really cool. And they have this sort of wavy glass top roof thing that
They
do
are quite
over
cool
the whole.
stations.
But the rest of the lot is just some palm trees and some like ornamental paving. Even the ones on Wilshire are going to be like that. I mean, you're talking some of the most major intersections in the city, Wilshire and La Brea. It's going to be a flat lot with this entrance. And I'm like, that's zoned for like a 50-story building. So they could if they wanted to. And I obviously know the foundations of a building. It gets complicated when you have a station underneath, but it's not unheard of. So obviously, you said in Japan they do it all over the place. So yeah, I'd like to see more of that. On the other hand, the other part of the question was, would anti-transit people shut up? What do you guys think? Would that just take away one of their arguments, or would they just find something else to complain about?
They just find something else.
Yeah.
They're stubborn.
I think like the big thing is just showing people, and like we talked about early in the show about LA, the transit at LAX is about just having that convenience. When you have the convenience there and you can try and use it, like that's what really wins people over, is just experiencing it in the first place. So I think it's about expanding and making it more convenient for everybody, and that's how you can really get more money into the system. But again, fare boxes aren't the way to make it profitable. That's just, I don't think, going to work. It's a public good, but like D-Man says here, P.S. I know that technically public transit is already profitable when you factor in the full economics and intangibles on the full city government scale. Absolutely. But yeah,
And also, we can't forget that a lot of transit agencies are kind of hamstrung with the land use on their stations. A lot of them actually aren't allowed to do that transit oriented development, which is
right.
why you'll see a lot of these transit agencies have built park and rides because it's a lot easier to do within just the logistics of building a station than it would be to do transit oriented development because then they would have to parcel out the land and then sell it to private developers rather than being able to do the transit oriented development themselves.
Yeah, true.
And
True.
by the way, I also think as long as we're talking about things that will encourage people to use transit, and also thanks for that note, Ethan. No, I don't. Again, I think a lot of these things are no one's fault. I think a lot of people, agencies are forced into like stuff like that. One thing I don't think that they're forced into, they could do more. I think safety does matter. I'm one of these urbanists. Thinks both physical safety and like the reputation of safety. Another
Absolutely.
thing, like when I mention Brightline to people I know, again, non-transit, non-planning people who I do know, the first thing they say is, "Oh yeah, it has a lot of car crashes." Right? That's the one where I see, and so it's like not great for its reputation. Does that directly affect ridership? I don't know. I don't think it's great that it has that reputation. So I think getting the safety right is super important, which obviously in the case like that, it's all about either grade separation or quad gates. And then on LA Metro, I mean, if urbanists are being honest with themselves, the number one conversation, the number one talking point people bring up when you talk about LA Metro is they say, I feel unsafe on it. And quite frankly, I ride it every single day. And even today, on my ride to this podcast, there were some people talking to themselves. I mean, I'm a young man, so I didn't necessarily feel threatened by it, but like I get how people don't like it. But I also think it's a feedback loop where the low ridership makes that stuff more prominent, and then so that it gets low ridership and all that. But a few times I have felt like actually threatened. Like there was one time a person with a crowbar banging it on stuff, and I was like, "Holy cow! If this person hits me, I'm going to be completely knocked out." So yeah, I think that's my own little rant on that. I think that matters. But
Yeah.
by the way, and I also think that
Yeah.
you don't necessarily need hundreds of police officers. I think that fare gates solve this
Yes.
problem in a huge way. 94% of the crimes committed on Metro are committed by people who jumped the fare gates. So just
Whoa.
that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or
So just
didn't
that can make a
validate
huge
fare
difference.
because LA's got a weird mixed system of fare validators and turnstiles.
Mm-hmm.
What's
And
the
by the way, those turnstiles ripped the strap off my backpack. So I have a beef with those
That's a big
turnstiles.
beef.
Yeah,
What's the
exactly.
difference between
Yeah.
like a like are the validators? Is it like the full gates where you have to like the
So validators are just ticket validation. Nick, have you been to Calgary?
yeah, but I never took the transit there.
Oh,
Oh wait, I did, but it was a long time ago.
well, the main thing about a ticket validation system is that you have your fare card, you tap it on a reader, but there's no fare gate blocking you.
Okay.
So occasionally there will be people going through the train checking fares. Well, of course, the turnstile based system is the classic, SkyTrain, tap it on the reader, go through the fare gate.
Okay.
And just having those systems and that security on the platform is super important for ridership, and
Yeah.
just even the perspective of having that security is super important for new riders. No one wants to have an uncomfortable experience on transit.
Yeah.
Oh,
Totally.
definitely. And by the way, it's not like driving in LA is safer. It's actually you're far more likely to get into an injury accident on the freeways than you are to get injured on the train. But again, that's not the reputation
Yeah.
it has. And I think it's important to be realistic about reputations.
I wonder if this is a big part of the reputation buses have versus trains, because at least I think here in Vancouver, and I think about the transit trips I've had, and any kind of uncomfortable-ish interactions have always been on a bus. And I think it's because the drivers are not told to or should not be enforcing like fare skippers or anything, and they don't here with trains like on the bus. So anybody just walks on the bus, they don't have to pay. But we actually do have fare gates when it comes to the SkyTrain station. So I think maybe that's a difference between the two, with not just perception but actual, crime
And then
on
you're so right.
buses versus
There's a
trains.
term for this that I heard recently. It was something like, what was it? It was like train something where it was like, yeah, if you make a bus light rail, suddenly like people think it's like fancy and cool, even if it's literally the same thing.
Or maybe even slower
Like,
because it gets stuck behind
I've
parked cars.
I've heard the exact opposite in cities like New York City, where people actually feel safer taking the bus rather than taking subway
Okay.
or the subway, just because there's that driver there, and on the MTA they are kind of strict on enforcing fares.
I think in LA, it's everyone thinks everything is dangerous. I don't know if there's a difference.
That's fair.
And I will say some of the buses, I'll upload a video into the Discord. I rode a bus a few weeks ago to get to the Grove because who wants to park in their 14-story parking garage? Yes, I counted. Anyway, it was the loudest vehicle, period, I've ever been in. I think every single screw on the bus was loose. So the panels were like slapping against each other on the insides. So I took a video of it because it's so funny. And also the roads here are in such bad shape. So every pothole was like, I thought the bus was going to, have you ever seen, I think it was a Charlie Chaplin or Buster Keaton clip where he's driving and the car like falls into pieces.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Filmed in LA. No, I thought that was going to happen to the bus. I was like, holy cow, what is going on here?
What else is filmed in LA?
Like everything. Well, not anymore. Not anymore.
It's all in Vancouver or Toronto now.
It's all up here.
Exactly. Not anymore. Most of the movies that took place in New York that you've seen were probably filmed in Toronto or Vancouver.
You know, they never actually said it like in Toronto, Vancouver. I think the F word, which actually is funny because Austin in the chat said, "Oh, it's showing the wrong one." He said the worst F word, Florida. There's a movie called The F Word. It's set in Toronto with Daniel Radcliffe, one of my favorite movies. But Vancouver never plays itself. Like even I think the what's that superhero Marvel movie with Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool. Like a lot of the shots and scenes are in Vancouver, and it's very clearly Vancouver. Like when they're flying from the sky and stuff, they're like on Granville Island, and the Granville Bridge flies down, but they never mention it. Anyway.
Wait a minute. There's a video. Superhero urbanism.
Really?
Yeah. You know what no one wants to see? A superhero villain fight in the middle of a Dallas suburb. You never see that.
True.
Not enough to destroy. So I think we should start building our cities
freeway
with Marvel backdrops in mind, and we'll end up with great cities, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
True.
Yeah.
All right, we got another question here. This is from Willie, one of our Patreon members. What do you think the headways need to be on a bus or train to make for a great transit system that will draw riders in instead of just people who can't get around another way? What do you guys think? Ethan, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so I made a post the other day basically saying that 15 minutes is honestly kind of the bare minimum that people will accept for, transit service, unless, you're being incredibly desperate for transit. 15 minutes really is kind of that, like, you start to get a little upset if you're waiting, and if your bus is delayed or your train's delayed or canceled, then you're waiting 30 minutes, and that, is a lot of time to be wasting. But personally, I think once you start hitting, every 10 minutes and you start getting every better than that, the more, convenient, obviously better headways obviously always means better. But I think once you get 10 minutes or better, you start really getting that draw of, oh, I don't even have to think about catching the next train.
There was actually a study that I've seen which said that at 12 minutes is when people stop checking schedules and just walk down to the station and wait. But under 5, I think is really. Doesn't the new line in Paris have some insane? They have a record, right? Isn't it like 40-second? It's something insane because it's automated trains. The new, is it the RER? Is that what it's called?
I don't know, but I bet it's great.
I think so.
I feel like Ethan would know. That's what I was asking. But yeah, I think it's also the interesting part of the question, I think, too, is it points to how transit viability, I think, relies on a few things. I think it can be boiled down to fast and frequent, where the headways have to be really good, but it also has to be fast. And so what you have also in LA, I actually see bus bunching a lot, where you have, for whatever reason, a bunch of buses come within 5 minutes of each other that are all on the same line. And so technically the headway is amazing, but they're all stuck in the same traffic as all the cars because there's no separated bus lanes. And so
they call that like a convoy, don't they?
Yeah. Wait, what do you mean by?
So like I think it's a convoy. Basically, like, so what you get with cars on the road, when the light goes green, a bunch of cars go in like a pack.
Although I have a video which I used in one of my last YouTube videos. During rush hour in LA, at least in the neighborhood I'm in, there aren't even room for convoys. I have a video. The light turns green, and the next intersection is also green, but the entire block is already taken up by cars. And so even though the light's green, no one behind it.
Just gridlock.
Yes,
straight up.
like actual gridlock, and the buses are stuck in that. So it doesn't matter. It
Oh,
doesn't matter what headways you
Oh,
have in that kind of gridlock.
yeah.
Like
Well, this is what you were
transit isn't
talking
any
about.
more attractive than
So
driving.
you released a video with Stefan from Build the Lanes and Taylor and Lindsay Sturman, I think, from Bike Talk, right?
Correct.
Great conversation on your channel and the full one on Build the Lanes. But you were talking about how when you look at a street, it's filled with cars, and you're like, it's always so busy. Like we need to open this up. But when a bus comes by and it looks like it's empty, but that bus coming by has got 50 or more people on it, like it's moving people.
Yeah, it moves more people per hour. There's a
Yeah,
whole really cool like
mhm.
animated NACTO chart that shows that. That actually Stefan doesn't like very much because he's like, you're promising people like full buses, full cars, full bike lanes. But I think it's good enough for people who are unfamiliar with the concept. But I do get it. Like I get like the dedicated bus lanes, the peak hour dedicated bus lanes on Wilshire do look empty,
yeah,
which is a
yeah.
weakness for
Yeah.
sure.
Same with bike lanes, right? Same argument we have against bike lanes for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Headways. I don't know. I don't have a big opinion on it. Like I'm pretty blessed here, but I remember growing up being in London, Ontario, and it sucked because when I went to college in London, I had one connection. Like I had to go down Wonderland, which is what was the 10 back then, and then head down Oxford, which is the 17, which is like how these numbers get like in your brain. I haven't ridden one of the buses in London well over a decade, but if I got on the 10 and took it the whatever how many blocks down to Oxford, it would get there just as the 17 was getting there at that intersection, which means I could, if I was lucky, I could get off that bus and run and catch that 17. And if I didn't, it would be between 20 and 30 minutes before the next one would come, which fucking sucked. And I didn't like that.
In the cold too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would often just walk so that I knew that I could get there at the right time to be there for the 17. And it would take about the same amount of time as if I missed it, but I could just at least relax and not worry about it. But here in Vancouver, it's fantastic. Like if I take the 99, which is an express bus, if I want to head east, then that during rush hour, it comes every like 2 minutes. Like I can miss it and be like, I see the other one. It's like a few blocks down. It's fine.
That's
But
amazing.
like, I think minimum like 10, 10 to 15, but Ethan said 15. So around that range. Yeah.
I'd say 15 is like the
The
bare
bare minimum. Yeah.
minimum. Like you're not, if
Yeah.
you have to wait any longer than that, then people are really just going to start to avoid it.
Ugh.
And can I
Yeah.
just say that London, Ontario is really, I don't think any city has been trashed this hard.
Well, I have a video for you.
Thanks to Not Just Bikes. Yeah, I feel like we
I
all know about Wonderland and Oxford.
Well, yeah,
Being
totally.
built.
Like literally, Jason in his videos when he shows London is literally pointing north up Wonderland, right at that intersection that I
Yeah.
would have to run to that bus. That's the intersection there.
Wow.
But yeah, London it's got some good stuff going on there, and there's people working hard to make the city better, and it's not as deplorable as some might think it is. That's just my take.
Right.
Even though I don't want to live there. We do have another question here, though. This one's
Yes, we do. We do.
from Jack. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jack asked us, in the same way vehicular cycling may have held back on real infrastructure for
He said
decades.
jackass.
I said Jack asked. I'm the jackass,
Sorry.
but you know. In the same way vehicular cycling may have held back on real infrastructure for decades, are there any aspects of the urbanist movement today that could be hindering us?
The thing that came to mind when I saw this question, I was like, I think about this a lot. Like I think about critical mass. Like critical mass is coming up. It's on Friday. It's tomorrow. Critical mass across North America, maybe even across the world. Hopefully, I can go if I'm not feeling like garbage. But I think about, does that help? And like, I don't think there's any hard data on whether or not critical mass helps. But I think in general, when I'm going down this line, I'm thinking about fuck cars. And I think the very extreme fuck cars people who are just like, cars need to be banned, crush all cars, fuck you if you drive a car, you're a piece of shit. I think that type of thing is not good. I don't think that's good for the urbanist movement, in my opinion. Like you need to reel it back. We need cars. We need cars. They're a
I think
useful
it's
tool.
fine. I think it's fine to have that, needle pushing at the end of the day. I think everybody's going to have their extremes to keep, moving, the Overton window further and further for us away from car dependency. And personally, I don't see them as the worst thing in the world,
Yeah.
but they can do some damage
Yeah,
sometimes.
and you need to
It's
let
not
off
like,
steam. And like, let's be honest, I love the fuck
yeah.
cars subreddit. It's a circle jerk on purpose, but yeah, some people get a little crazy in there once in a while. What about you, Sully?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind, I don't think urbanists did this on purpose either. But from an objective standpoint, I think something that doesn't help the movement is the politicization, the association with one side of the aisle, obviously being the left side of the aisle overall. Because the truth is, at least America, it's pretty much split 50-50. So if half the people think that if you like bike lanes, you are therefore a Democrat, well, then half the people are going to be against bike lanes. I don't know how you remedy that because again, I don't think it's something that urbanists chose necessarily. And also, I think that there are plenty of, I mean, in Santa Barbara, there's very few right wing people, and yet we still have tons of NIMBYs, and I'm sure they dutifully check the vote blue in every election, so you people can hate stuff for lots of different reasons, but I do think, like I said, objectively, the politicization of things that I don't think should be or need to be, or I don't even know how they got that way. And that's one of the reasons I love strong towns, is that they are super super careful to not, quote unquote, not be political, even though people try and make them. And it's actually funny because of that. In the strong towns national Discord I'm in, we actually share, people in different cities share what their strong towns group is accused of. And so what's really funny is like strong towns, Omaha is accused of being like left wing, but like all the strong towns groups in California, we're accused of being like some right wing think tank from the Midwest, and so like people will just foist whatever politics they want onto it. But yeah, that's the main one. And then the other one, I think, which I will actually say that I have been this way, and it's part of what you said, Nick, too. And by the way, I was going to say, because of your cold, I thought of a nickname for you, which is NyQuil Nick.
I actually took some NyQuil last night.
That sounds like a Trump level insult. Like, NyQuil Nick coming in with the worst opinions on the show.
Yeah, NyQuil Nick. But no, I agree. I think it's the overall self-righteous attitude, I think, because I think that the people who were into vehicular cycling had that attitude where they really thought they knew best. And I think it's really, and I've learned through making public comment, and I know it sounds so annoying how you have to have like your measured way of talking to people, but don't put it on yourself, put it on them. Say they're such delicate snowflakes, to use that term, that you have to be very careful when you talk about bike lanes or zoning or transit. It's their problem and not yours. But yeah, it's definitely easy to get in an echo chamber of urbanism online and just assume that you can waltz into like a city council meeting and talk that way. And
Yeah,
it doesn't work. Even the city council members who agree with you.
and it's easy to get in that trap of complaining about things and being condescending in a way, or at least appearing that way. Like when I make my content, I really try not to, but I know it seeps in sometimes, and it happens. Like there's a one creator I do really like. I think it's Average Man on a Bicycle. I think he's from the UK, but that's like his whole thing. Like he just like rips. Every video is just like 5 minutes of him just ripping apart car dependency and stuff, and it's like a way to let off steam, and I appreciate it. But I think you're right. Like, especially the strong towns thing, that's where I was going to go with this, was basically like they come from that fiscally conservative kind of angle where this is the way to make our streets better. And like we talked about last week, or at least Aaron talked about last week, about that whole classical style of conservatism in It's a Wonderful Life, and how things used to be. That was the way we would build things because it was economical.
Yeah, I think there's a whole thesis waiting to be written on how urbanism is an inherently conservative movement. I mean, it would be a really interesting argument to make, because what do we talk about in urbanist circles? We're like, we just wish it was the 1890s without racism.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Like streetcar suburbs and like right before cars were invented, but like, with penicillin, like we'll keep that stuff. So, I mean, yeah, which is like an inherently kind of conservative thing. You're hearkening back to the past. Although obviously you're thinking forward because you're talking about change at the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would love to see that argument made. And then I think the one other thing I would say, but this is just like my opinion, is I think there are bad takes in urbanism. I mentioned one of them before. I saw a guy in the YouTube comment section where it was about LA Metro, and people were saying, like, sharing experiences they had about being harassed on LA Metro and how they wish there were more enforcement officers. And the guy who posted the video was like arguing with everyone that police make people feel uncomfortable, and how dare you suggest that people are committing crimes and it's your problem. And I was like, very bad take, dude, very bad take. So I think that kind of, whatever it is, I think whether it's fuck cars or whether it's that, anything that's fringe just hurts the movement overall because it's fringe.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Generally. But, I was thinking about this, like about bike lanes and cycling in general, or transit, and how all these things, making things more walkable, helps the community in whole scope of ways, financially, socially, people's health and everything, and actually saving lives by making our streets safer. But what if the financial aspect wasn't there? Like, I feel like it'd be a much harder sell if it was like, yeah, it's going to cost us a lot more money. Like, if what people said about bike lanes was actually true about how they cost, who's going to pay for this? It's like, well, we're going to have to pay a lot, instead of the actual truth, which is like, well, I'll pay less actually. Man, it'd be harder.
Well,
Anyway,
then there wouldn't be strong towns, I guess. I guess it would be
there wouldn't.
It would be more like, I guess, the early environmental movement, like going back to the 70s,
Yeah.
before there were, viable solar panels, and the people. And actually, by the way, happy Earth Day, everybody. Fun fact,
yes.
Earth Day was founded in Santa Barbara, my hometown. Very first Earth Day, very first Earth Day festival. I've met the people who founded it. It's because we had an oil spill in '69, and they had a festival to But back then, being an environmentalist, there was not really an economic. I mean, there was a long-term economic sell that people weren't really good. They didn't have enough data to articulate yet, which is that if we keep doing this, the Earth is going to get ruined. But like the short term, I don't think they're right there, because there were no really alternatives to oil, gas, and coal. So yeah, I think there was a hard argument back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, nuclear, but
Oh yeah, of course, nuclear. But what's funny is environmentalists back then were against nuclear too.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think this whole thing comes back to what D-Man said about asking about if public transit could be profitable. But Austin says here in the chat, like, how California high-speed rail is cheaper than both roadway and airport expansion. And it's a thing, like, how do we get away from that? How do we get away from this conversation where we always worry about the cost of bike lanes and transit when we don't really talk about that with cars? It's so frustrating. But it's for the common good of the people when we build, an extra 10 lanes on our highway.
Common good. How about the common good for myself and myself only?
Yeah. It's
That's
right.
right. We're going on
It has to shift.
individualism.
And I think these things I've actually thought of a sort of a political theory that I've sort of come to, which is, I think a lot of politics can be boiled down to what a society is willing to subsidize. And so people like to think in America we're not socialist, but the fact that we have libraries is already something that's subsidized, right? And the roadways, obviously all of our roadways are subsidized. And so I think along that spectrum of literally no subsidization at all, like good luck, all the way to maximum, which is maybe a place like Singapore or Switzerland, where a lot of public housing, a lot of subsidized transit and all that, although it comes with costs, obviously. So, yeah, I think that the population has shit. Like, people didn't used to think that the government should subsidize education, And
That's
then
not
that
going to
idea
go
was
badly.
actually,
People still think that.
yeah, a lot of people still think that. The idea of subsidizing primary school, elementary school for kids was invented in Scotland like 300 years ago. It's like a pretty new idea. Then came the idea that there should be parks that didn't have to make money. Then there was the idea that there should be national parks, right? Like, what's the value in this? The value is the beauty.
Can we just have
that idea is like 100 years old. So.
Yeah. I would just wish politicians would come forward and actually be like, we are going to have fact-based policy, instead of being like, we are going to use our common sense, which is like, I'm going to do whatever bullshit I want, whether or not you like it. It's just so frustrating.
Look,
I've got oil money.
Do you guys think we're going to hand governance to AI at some point?
Yeah.
I hope
just
not.
hand it over.
Speaking of AI, can I show you guys something here? This is fantastic. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen this. I know you have, Sully. Wow, this is what you're going to look like when you're older. I love it. This is at the end of your video. LA's newest metro line
that's
has
what
a
I'm going to
hole in
look like when LA Metro builds all the transit that they have on the
Yeah. Same with the Eglinton Crosstown LRT in Toronto opens. The same thing.
No, it's going to open in a week from now. Come on.
For some reason, the AI assumes not only will I look old, but I'll also have been a rabid smoker. I feel like that it looks like I'm very unhealthy as well.
AI just likes giving wrinkles when
the
you
crow's
say make
feet
me
are,
older.
aggressive.
Yeah. Yesterday I gave ChatGPT a picture of my dog, who I don't think you guys have met yet. I'll introduce him on the podcast when I'm at home.
This is a
Anyway, I
cat-friendly
said
show. We
make
didn't
him
say it was
into
a
a human.
dog-friendly one.
Yeah, but the podcast is.
I'm just kidding.
It better
Of course.
be. It better be.
What's the dog's name,
But
at
yeah,
least?
so I said make him into a human, and
Oh,
it made him into a human. I
I
gotta
did that.
say,
I did that with my cat, and it was like I was like, yeah, that's what she would be. It was like, this is fantastic.
so
It's
I can.
AI is a fun tool to just goof around with. So
Did
this
you guys see the OpenAI CEO say, "Stop saying please and thank you. It's wasting millions of dollars."
Wow. First of all, wow to both of you guys. That's really cool because I treat AI nicely and I do say please and thank you.
Keep saying please and thank you to AI.
So okay, I'm gonna show you my. Okay, this is the doggy.
oh,
There he
beautiful
is.
dog.
Aw.
His name's Barnaby, and he's 3 years old. And that's him sitting on my bed. And okay, are you ready for human Barnaby?
Let's
Yeah,
see
show us human Barnaby. Oh my god.
it.
So it
He looks
assumed he would be
like a
black
sound
because he's
engineer.
black. Yeah, but no, what I love about this guy is that he looks very sympathetic. Like the expression, he has like the expression
He's got kind
of
eyes.
the dog. And he
Yeah.
has the dog tags, which I think is fantastic.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and I'll show you one more that I thought was really great. I took a picture of him on the grass, one of my favorite parks in Santa Barbara. I don't know how you could
Barnaby, what a
unbrighten
good
that.
dog.
But anyway, the ocean is behind us. So anyway, do you want to see what human Barnaby looks like sitting on the grass? Here he is. It's the same dude.
God, they remembered. It knows. Is that
It's the same
ChatGPT?
guy. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty amusing.
Or you just have a friend and you're just taking pictures of him like at the park and stuff.
I do
You
not have a
pretend to be my
friend who
dog.
wears dog tags outside of his sweater.
Yeah. Do you have a show and tell today? You got something?
Was that the show and tell?
What?
That might have been the
That's
show
a pretty
and
good
tell.
show and tell. I like that. That's
That was a
fantastic.
pretty good show and tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not at my home base in Santa Barbara, so I don't really have any of this stuff. I mean,
It's
I
okay.
have this mug.
We can we can savor it. No, I think
Yeah,
the
exactly.
dog with the dog tag or the man with the dog tags was definitely
man
excellent.
with the
But
dog
I got a little tiny update before we go. I actually have a video coming out. It's been months, I think. It's been a long time, but it'll be out tomorrow. It's about the cherry blossoms here in Vancouver. I do a little bike tour and find some hot spots to find some beautiful trees that were blossoming or blooming. And I really had fun making it. But I'm in grind mode now, and there's going to be more videos coming out over the next few months, especially when I
Gotta
go.
love cherry blossom
Oh, yeah.
season.
Beautiful. But yeah, I just want to have my little update there. But should we close out the show here, guys?
I
Sure.
think we should close out the show. Folks, thank you so much for tuning into another wonderful episode of Radio Free Urbanism. As always, I want to thank our patrons, especially the ones in the live chat today. We had Austin, Willie, and Jack here in the live chat, and I want to thank them and just let you know that if you want to tune into this live chat and also get some other cool perks like access to our Discord and early access to the show if you can't make the live chat, then guess what? You can tune in for how much, Sully?
$1.
That's right, $1. Had to quiz him on that one.
I've never had to
But
do
yeah,
it, so
well,
yeah.
that was the first test, and you passed.
Nailed it.
For just $1 a month, one United States dollar a month, you can join our Patreon, support the show, and of course, get those wonderful benefits. Thank you so much for watching. Sully, where can the good people find you?
Sullyville got some exciting videos coming out, which are not going to be recordings of Zoom conversations. They're going to be on location. Although I have to say,
Even better.
very frustratingly, just a vent. That recorded Zoom conversation with Stefan is getting more views than 2 videos I filmed on location. I do not understand internet people. I don't know why, but there you go.
You got the boost from Build the Lanes, the Build the Lanes boost.
Yeah, he's great. Stefan is amazing.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah.
You can find me at Nick the Door on YouTube, Instagram, and Blue Sky. Ethan, how about you?
Folks, you can find me over on Climate and Transit on pretty much every platform. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode, and as always, train good, car bad.
2 wheels good.
2 feet fun.